Have you ever felt incredibly busy, yet it seems like you're not really achieving the results you want? Well, if so, you're not alone. And today we're going to explore the power of prioritization, how honing this essential skill can help you cut through the noise and focus on what truly matters, leading to greater clarity, purpose, and effectiveness in your leadership. To help us unpack this, we have Slavan Drinovac, CEO and founder of CoachingCenter, a digital platform dedicated to empowering organizations through leadership and executive coaching. Thanks for joining us, Slavan.
Thanks, Scott. Pleasure to be here and sharing hopefully some useful insights with the leaders out there.
All of us want to be more personally effective in achieving our goals. And you mentioned that prioritization is the key. Why do you think that is the key?
I mean, it seems that we're getting busier every day, and all these additional tasks that we need to do create a bit of, I guess, almost blockage in our brain that we get overwhelmed, can't decide which way to go. And it usually takes a little bit more than we could actually take for that particular day, a week, a month, and start grueling to it. And that converts into long hours, long weeks, and etc. So finding the way how to prioritize and ensure that you allocate that time within your schedule. So you become, I suppose, master of your prioritization rather than everyone else.
Yeah. So it just feels like we have these incredibly long to-do lists, and they could be potentially infinite. We could always be busy. And the trick here is to make sure you're doing the right things.
Everything is important for everyone. More likely than not, every time we get email, it'll be something urgent, something that needs to be done straight away, and etc. And that could pollute our thinking and make us not so productive.
So you mentioned in our conversation earlier the Eisenhower Matrix. Do you want to just walk us through that model?
Yeah, so it's a model that's been around for decades. And Eisenhower, the US president, used it to manage workload and manage all country. Must be something good. And don't get me wrong, like the same as many people, I'll explore other things, trying to jump on something new, be more fleshy, because I thought something new might be better. But always come back to this model.
So I think Eisenhower said something like, things that are often important aren't often urgent, and things that are often urgent aren't often important. So that was kind of where this matrix came from.
Yeah.
So these particular quadrants, do you agree with what's on the screen at the moment? Is that a good sort of strategy for each of those quadrants?
Yeah, the best strategy is to make it simple. I saw many of those that have big, long descriptions. But what you see on the map, it's a perfect example how it should be used. Simple and easy, not too much, because that's designed there to make a quick decision. So do it now. For me, urgent, do it now. It's something that I have to do today.
Mm-hmm. Right, okay.
So if it's not the day today that I need to do it today, that's not urgent, that's important.
Okay. So things that need to be done today that are important, do it now. Things that are not urgent, so tomorrow or later on, you basically schedule a time for it. But things that are urgent and not important, it's saying delegate. Is that a decent strategy?
Yeah, perfect strategy. So delegation is interesting. Every time when I think about a particular task, if it's not urgent or important, then I put in delegation space. So, and a delegation space is the person that can do that task to a certain level.
Yeah.
And doesn't necessarily has to be on a level that I expected, whatever that expectation might be.
And I think that helps define what important actually is. If it's important for me to be doing, because nobody else can do it, it's kind of important but it's kind of like important for the business, but important for me to be doing. Otherwise, it's, I could just outsource it to somebody else. Yeah. So that sort of begs the question is, how do you determine if something's actually important? What are some of the coaching techniques that you use to help people actually decide what are these most important activities they should be doing in their position?
It depends on the position. So
Yeah,
obviously, we're struggling. It's quite a complex question. It's a different
that's
thing
right.
for different people. I think it's important to understand and have, I suppose, some um, rules about what's important, and
Mhm.
perhaps have some sense of what's important on in my work, that it's only me that needs to do it, and I can't delegate it to others. Let's say if you're executive, some decisions that it needs to be made on that space, like
Mhm.
accumulating it there. But anything that is not there, reverted to delegation. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, different for different people. I guess, to reverting back to a point here, actually, that was a good point that you brought into conversation, that if I have to do it, but no one else can do it, that's important.
Mm.
If
Mm.
someone else can do it, then perhaps it's not as important. Someone might be, let's say, if you're a leader, it could be a great opportunity to develop others as well.
Yeah. Is there a conversation around values in determining what is important to you? So some people, for example, are workaholics, but when you sort of sit back at the end of your life and reflect back, and were those things really important in the scheme of things? Is that part
Yeah.
of the coaching conversation?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's important conversation to have. And
Mm,
let's say, when we talk about values, quite a few leaders actually don't know their top 5 values, the values
yeah.
that determine who they are in the world. Let's say if one of your values is fairness, for example, when
Mhm.
you observe that, it doesn't necessarily need to happen to us. We get
Yep.
impacted by it, and then we make a decision based on that. So, just one example how, when we talk about important values, how we live in our life outside of work as well, it plays
Mm.
a significant role.
And I think there's different ways of describing what your values are. So some are in terms of those traits like fairness, and other ones in terms of, okay, I value being a good father and family and those sorts of things that are um, probably not easily described in one or two character traits.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Well, and I guess perhaps that's why not many people reflect on it, because
mm,
there is no particular way or right or wrong way to doing it.
yeah, yeah,
Because there are values, and how we understand and interpret, how we voice them, might be very different to others. There are a few tools out there, but I think, like, particularly in a coaching conversation, it's a great space to explore those values and to get people to ponder a little bit more and identify what are those, like the top 4, 5, or 6 values that we live by. And let's say, as you said, the important to be a good father, and that's value that's going to be driven and inform some other decisions. Being a good father maybe means that we won't be workaholics, because
mhm,
we need to make a judgment and perhaps even prioritize, I wouldn't say more, our work, and where do we put priority. Let's say, like one of values, being a good father, which means that's priority.
yeah.
So, and make that into take that into consideration when doing prioritization as well.
So there's different levels of, I guess, what's important to you. One is that big scheme of things. In the end, what's your legacy? As they say, a lot of people climb the ladder of success only to find out too late that it's up against the wrong wall. It's that kind of discussion around long-term values. And then in the short term, you as a leader, what are you trying to achieve? And sort of prioritize those more immediate pressing concerns as well. So it sounds like there's various discussions around unpacking what is actually important. Yeah.
Mm. Well, we have one brain, one mind. We can't go and do work and, like, separate everything else that's happening around us. So we need
Mm,
to take all that in consideration. And I think we're going to use pandemic for a very long time as a a kind of reference point when we started realizing some of priorities that are important to us. So we see a lot more dedication to work-life balance. And I think that's also important to, when we think about time, we only have so much time in a day, in a week, but how much we allocate to work and how much we allocate to others as well. And reverting back to Eisenhower Matrix, that also need to be taken into consideration, because if anything, everything is urgent and important, what about everything else? Like, we want to have time for some other areas in our life.
Yeah. And you had mentioned earlier that you wanted to talk about technology or how you use this matrix in practice. Do you have any quick comments or tips around that?
Yeah, so I guess like finding the way that works for you. I mentioned there are so many tools out there. There are even apps that you can use Eisenhower Matrix. So quite a few things. But what worked for me, and that might not work for others, it's very quick. So sometimes I would do it even mentally. So kind of placing in a quadrant if I don't have anything to write on. But if I do, I use OneNote for everything, Microsoft OneNote. I know some people might not be using it, and open it. It's available there, Eisenhower Matrix, and just put where I think it should go and make decision based on that. The biggest, I suppose, step is what to do with it. So if it's urgent, then I need to move things around for the day, because that's something that I need to do that day. If it's not urgent but important, I put it straight away into calendar. I don't create a list. That's already, once I create matrix, that's already passed. I make decision where it belongs and I put in I use Outlook, but any other calendar that's based there, and send reminders, anything that I need to do, any thinking in that space.
So if we could summarize quickly our thoughts about this conversation, what's the takeaway message for people?
Make it simple and easy. Sometimes we want to create too complicated, as I mentioned. For me, making it simple, not making create another list. It's a tool to decide where the decision belongs to. What do we need to do? But straight away, put it in some areas that's kind of among everything else that we need to do. For me, that's calendar. So in summary, a great tool, but how we're using it and just to make it as simple as possible, I think is the key for success.
And I think it's such a simple premise. It's not about doing things right. It's about doing the right things. And people like me who just love being busy, I can feel like I'm just doing so much, but then I reflect on the week and say, did I really accomplish what I needed to accomplish? Did I really spend time on the important things? I might not like doing those things, so I've been busy with all these other things. It's just a sanity check in some sense. That's,
Well, yeah, I guess, there are things that we like doing, and unfortunately, if you have limited time, that might not be important and urgent. It's something that we like to do, and perhaps putting in something that's not urgent but important, because we get something from it. So if you get, let's say, creativity, designing something, it's important but not urgent. Because if we deny ourselves something that is important to us, it's almost like feeding our soul, that we create something that also can impact us, because we can't actualize what we actually are all about in the work. So, and for me, this is what I put into important, not urgent. That's the decision, and put a time and block time when I'm going to do it.
Perfect. How can people learn more about you and your work? I've got CoachingCenter here. Is there anything else?
Well, I'm quite active on LinkedIn, so that's a space where I do quite a bit of conversation and interact. So people can go on LinkedIn, connect with me. More than happy for people to ask questions. I'm very passionate, same as you, Scott, about leadership and anything leadership and coaching. So yeah, LinkedIn is probably the best place to connect.
Perfect. And people can find more about me at scottbolland.com. Thank you so much for your time today, Slavan. It's been great.
Absolute pleasure, Scott. And thanks. Really privileged to be here.